wastelands of the internet. Once again, I have returned. Returned to bring you the news. The news of the day, news of the week. Just a general news of everything going on as we go through life and the wonderland that we exist within. That's kind of interesting. I've lost my chat. Let's see what happens here. All right, hopefully everything will come back. All right, the way it was before. Yes, finally I can see my chat again. welcome, everybody. Mr. Barkley, I can see you. TM, how are you all doing today? Let me pop out the chat here. So I can sit up there and read while we're going around things. Sorry I took so long getting everybody there. Welcome, Oz. Welcome. I see Oz in the chat. So it's been a little bit. Last week I was in just too much pain to actually do anything. All right. So I apologize. I apologize for not doing anything on that. I have a shoulder kind of thing that I really aggravated last week, trying to paint the trimming on the house. And it really flared up, I'm still recovering from it. Actually, it takes a long time. When you get older, these little nitnoid little things, they just take time. But we have news. Let's get right to it. I know we're gonna start right here. Right. There's a video released from the Security Service of the Ukraine showing the attacks from the massive Ukrainian drone strike on air bases throughout the former Soviet Union of Russia. And a massive attack, all right, which, of course, was very devastating in the sense that it shows that the Ukrainians have the ability, of attacking deep into Russian territory. The problem that I see with this is a number of things. Now, what does this all lead to? It leads to Zelensky officially rejecting Putin's deal. Okay, the peace deal that they keep talking about to receive a ceasefire is constantly being pushed off. Okay, Putin has very little interest in pursuing the peace deal, and Zelensky himself has very little interest in pursuing peace. And these are going to, these things are going to take place continuously until somebody stops. Somebody sits up there and quits. Neither side are going to quit. Now, if we take a look at the life map, okay, what do you see? Well, you see strikes being committed against Smolensk and Moscow. Okay, you see drone attacks from the Ukrainians. You also see movement, however, all right, within the Ukraine along two major corridors. Here's one, all right. It looks like they're surrounding this area here. What even more so, if there are Ukrainian troops within this area, it looks like they're going to be surrounded and eliminated. Okay, that's what it looks like on the way to Kostonica, whatever that road is. Meanwhile, at Pokrovsk, they've made major inroads. Okay, they are no longer even a mile from the centers anymore. And what you're seeing is the West allowing the Ukrainians to continue this attack. Okay. Now, everyone keeps talking about, well, the Ukrainians can win. The Ukrainians can win. Okay. Let's talk about what that means for a moment. The Ukrainians can win. How did the Ukrainians win? Serious question. And I'm not dismissing it. How did the Ukrainians win? The Ukrainians win when the Russians stop attacking them. Okay? And what's going to convince the Russians to stop attacking them? Is it going to be the Ukrainians? Seriously. And what I mean by that is this attack that the Ukrainians pulled off. Zelensky came out and made a comment that the Russian trucks that were transporting the drones, that the drivers themselves were just Russians and didn't even know what they were transporting, and therefore, they were unaware, all right, that they were transporting these drones, and the drones then hit an area and they immediately took off, and then there's a great intelligence coup because the drones themselves were not flown from the Ukraine. They were flown and attacked these airfields, all right, within Russia itself, all right. So basically, they had a group of people in there being able to do this. How? And what my point with this is not what a lot of people may think it is. My point isn't just that the Russians are sloppy, right? Because quite frankly, the Russians to an extent are. Okay, let's be honest. Their tactics are the old tactics of World War II. Still, even now, all right. You you hit something. If that didn't work, get a bigger hammer, hit it again. Get a bigger hammer, hit it again. You keep hitting it until it gives in. That's the Russian approach to this. It's also the Ukrainian approach, to be honest. Okay? But they don't have a bigger hammer. In fact, they don't have hammers at all. What they have is everything is borrowed from somebody else. To include the ability to do these huge, massive drone attacks that everyone is lauding. Oh, look what the Ukrainians were able to do. Yeah, no. The Ukrainians didn't do that on their own. They couldn't do it on their own. They needed massive amounts of help from the West. So what I mean by how does Ukraine win the war? They only win the war if the West continues to use them as fodder, all right, to keep the Russians, all right, from achieving victory until the Russians eventually quit. But how many Ukrainians are dying in this thing? How many Russian soldiers are dying in all this? All because we're supporting Zelensky. Let's be frank here. Nomad, don't you understand? They were a democratic country and they were invaded. And hear me arguing that point? Hear me disagreeing with you about that? But it's not our fight. It's not. If Zelensky was the man everyone says that he is, okay, and I'm hoping everybody can hear me. If Zelensky was the man everybody said he was, we wouldn't be having this issue. We wouldn't have this discussion. If he was truly a freedom-loving person, but he's not. He's corrupt. And the EU is corrupt. Putin's a bad guy. He's corrupt. He's got all this. He's an oligarch. He's a dictator. So Zelensky. What's more is he's not pro-American. He's not on our side. And what I mean by that is do you think that he's an ally of us? He has spit at America every chance he's actually gotten, and you want to sit there and talk about how this guy is he's a great ally of America? No, he's not. He's an ally of corruption. If he was truly trying to make the world a better place and Ukraine a better place, he wouldn't be fighting the war the way he is, number one. Do I agree that Putin's a bad guy? Sure. Do I recognize, however, that Russia has concerns within the Ukraine that are actually legitimate? Yes, I do. Not every one of the claims that Putin has claimed about the Ukraine is inaccurate. And Kiev is not this great democracy. The Ukrainians are not this great democracy. They are not helpful to America. Now you can say, well, that's because they're more Eurocentric. No, man, that's why you're doing that. No, he's not. He's possibly worse than an old school mob boss. He is. Zelensky is no prize here. Now these people are dying, and the Ukrainians are dying. But to be honest, everyone keeps decrying, what's going on here? Let me ask you a question. Is there any possibility without U.S. intelligence, all right, for the Ukrainians to pull off the attacks on those airfields? Is it? The answer is no. How are you able to transport all this equipment inside of Russia to get all this stuff? This becomes problematic. This is more problematic than you realize. Why? Because it's very possible that those things were shipped directly from Poland, which is a NATO ally. So the NATO ally was directly involved in the attacks deep inside of Russia. How else do you think those trucks got in there? You think they drove from Kiev? I don't think so. All right. And what's more, when it comes to this war, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, the land Russia has seized, it's not going to give up. And the Ukrainians' intransigence isn't going to change that. It isn't going to change it, folks. Let's assume something right now. Let's assume that there's a temporary pause because Putin dies. Let's say he dies in office. He has a heart attack. Just whatever. He was removed. However you want to talk about how he's removed. And he's no longer president of the United States or president of Russia. If he's no longer in charge of Russia, it's very possible that there's a temporary pause in the military movement here. Does that mean the Russians are going to pull back? Not in the slightest. They may freeze fighting. They may stop the offensives while internal struggles take place within Russia. And believe it or not, okay, I don't think it's going to be as difficult to replace Putin as a lot of people think. I think their situation will be resolved rapidly. And we would be right back to the same situation we got right now. If you think that they're going to give up in the Ukraine and give the Ukrainians everything back, it's not going to happen. But you're never going to get Zelensky to agree to any territory, all right, being under Russian control. He's already made that statement very clear. So the war doesn't end with Putin being removed. This is my analysis. And the reason I say that isn't because, well, the Russians don't want to give up what they've what they've seized already, which is very true. They're not going to do that too. But the main reason is their concerns about what was going on in the Ukraine were legitimate from their perspective. So without addressing those concerns, how are you going to fix that? How is that fixed with or without Putin? So the only way that you're going to have a solution here, and I'm going to be real blunt, is if you get rid of Zelensky. The Ukrainians have to get rid of Zelensky for this war to stop. Or, here's another way they could do it. We could just withdraw all our support. Did you notice how screaming everybody did when the U.S. said, do it on your own? Where's this massive support from the EU? We turned off the spigot of intelligence, just intelligence. Okay? For what? About 10 days? And during those 10 days, the Russians went on a berserk freaking offensive and gained all sorts of territory because the Ukrainians couldn't stop them anymore. Do you want a solution to this? Do you want the dying to really stop? There's only one solution. Pull the American support completely out of their hands. That's the reality. The only way to stop this right now is to pull all U.S. support from the Ukraine. Now, is that in America's interests? You know what? Is it in our interest to be in NATO? I would argue that it isn't in our interest to be in NATO. All right, let's move over to the next real conflict. 5 signs Israel and Iran could be headed toward open war. Boy, Amir. Boy, howdy. How could we ever know without you writing this story? Oh my God. That Israel and Iran could be headed for open war. Why it matters. A potential full-scale war between Iran and Israel would further destabilize an already volatile Middle East with serious implications for global security. Why? Why would it destabilize, okay, global security? I'm not joking here. Why? Because of Israel's support? Because of the support of Israel? No, it's because of Iran. All right? And who's supporting Iran? Russia. But the big one is China. The big one is China. Personally, I would demand that there's no more freaking things coming from China. Iran missile fuel shipments. Iran has reportedly ordered thousands of tons of ammonium perchlorate from China, a key ingredient for producing solid-fueled ballistic missiles, aiming to reinforce its military capabilities. According to the Wall Street Journal, the materials, which could be used to manufacture up to 800 missiles, are expected to be delivered in the coming months. Sink the ships. Declare them no. Some may be distributed to Iranian-aligned militias, including the Houthis in Yemen. The procurement appears to be part of Iran's strategy to strengthen its overall regional alliances and missile arsenal as it resists limiting its missile development in nuclear talks. Number 2, Israel is ready to strike. Number 3, Iran linked militias. No shit. Number 4, Netanyahu's political struggles, which are basically meaningless. And 3, Israel's isolation. Or 5, Israel's isolation. Nobody cares. And Israel is not going to be any more isolated than it has always been. Israel today is no more isolated than it was in the 1967. Hate to say it, but it's true. No difference. All right, let's get on to some more stuff here. Dun, 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 dun. Musk burns MAGA bridges as Republicans back Trump in brawl from the Wall Street Journal. Representative Troy Nehls, Republican from Texas, a vocal President Trump defender, stared into the television cameras that circled him outside the Capitol steps and addressed Elon Musk. You've lost your damn mind. Enough is enough, he said. Stop this. Several hours of public fighting between Musk and Trump, triggered by criticism of Trump's tax and spending bill, was quickly turning the billionaire megadonor from a revered MAGA figure to an outright outcast among Republican lawmakers. The brawl playing out on television and social media risked derailing Musk's push to persuade Republicans to overhaul their signature legislation, which he painted as a budget busting abomination. As the fight heated up, Musk claimed credit for Trump's 2024 win and agreed with the social media message saying Trump should be removed from office. The president threatened to revoke Musk's government contracts and wondered if Musk suffered from Trump derangement syndrome. It's going bad. Oh, it's a fight. Look at this. Oh, the media. Folks, the left and the leftist media are out of their damn minds. They're being played, and they're not even smart enough to realize it. They're being played. This kerfuffle between Elon Musk and Trump is staged kabuki theater. Okay? I want you to understand it. It's stage kabuki theater. This is something, I honestly believe this. I honestly believe that Trump and Musk came up with this. They came up with this for two reasons. One, it is dominating, I mean dominating the news cycle. Nah, I think that, that Elon Musk is really a spaz. Okay. And Elon Musk is, I don't want to say it, okay, but he's not the Rock of Gibraltar of stability. Okay, I will agree with you there. All right. But Elon Musk is also not an idiot. Neither is Trump. And this is a kind of thing from the way it goes. And Elon is doing things that you've never seen Elon do before. Elon doesn't deal with personal attacks. Okay? He doesn't. He doesn't engage in Twitter in personal attacks, but he all of a sudden he threw out, Trump is in the Epstein files. That's why he won't release it. Now, what happened? As soon as Elon Musk said that, by the way, he's deleted that post. As soon as Elon Musk said that, all of a sudden the left, a bunch of Democrat left senators demanded to see the Epstein files. These are the same people who were trying to stop it before. These are the people who've been decrying the release of the Epstein files. It's kabuki theater. I really don't think it's serious. Now, there are some points that were pointed out. First of all, Like Trump saying, "Oh, I want to cancel these Elon Musk contracts." He's already he's already canceled several of them, right? Why? Because they had nothing to do with what was going on. I mean, the idea that we're going to sit up there and buy a bunch of freaking Tesla uh, uh, trucks, right? You know that Trump's mean tweets are run by a woman. It doesn't matter. Okay? I'm kind of serious about that. It really doesn't matter. But this is kabuki theater, folks. These two guys have plotted this, and I can see one of the reasons that Trump plotted this with Elon is to provide Elon Musk cover for the left because, quite frankly, Tesla has taken it in the short. Tesla's fan base, the people who are purchasing Teslas, let's be perfectly frank, are not MAGA conservatives for the most part. Why? Because MAGA conservatives couldn't care less, all right, about electric vehicles because they think the whole climate warming thing is a scam. And whether Elon Musk thinks it's a scam or not is immaterial. So the people who were going out talking about, oh, I got a Tesla, the vast majority of them were all a bunch of freaking leftist loons. And when he became persona non grata, meaning Musk became persona non grata to them, his major purchase base of Teslas went away. Well, now he comes back, he attacks Trump a couple of times. Oh, he's the great hero in the media again. He's a great, wonderful man considering the leftists. All right, and the left are all flocking back to him. That's right, go take out the Cheeto Führer. Take out that evil orange dictator. And as far as them making money on Trump derangement syndrome, they're not making the money that they did before. And the reason for that is because their narrative building has been destroyed. Anyway, let's go on to some more stories. Here's a wonderful story. New Yorkers search the web for free Palestine info more than any other state, study finds. What does that tell you? Tells me it's the home of Allahu Akbar. Okay? New Yorkers scoured the web for information on Palestine related phrases more than any other state in the U.S., a new study found. Since the start of the year, the Empire State averaged 8,260 searches per month for phrases including Palestine protest, Free Palestine movement, and Free Palestine flag, more than any other place in the country per capita. So that's not only number wise, but per capita as well. For every 100,000 people in the state, there were more than 41 searches for Free Palestine related phrases, the analysis of Google Trends conducted by the Ladha Law found. The most popular phrase in New York with 3,600 searches was Free Palestine, followed by Palestine protest with 1,600 searches. New York City's Columbia University was the epicenter of violent anti-Israeli protests last year, with similar ones taking place throughout California, all right, and across the country. Gee. You know what state took second place? It wasn't California, believe it or not. It was Vermont, the home of social communism in America, socialism and communism, the Bernie Bros. Hail Hydra! Welcome, Sixer. It's a joke, folks. It's a joke. These people are nothing. What they're doing is what's concerning about this is you have a large number of people who are siding with Hamas. I don't care if you don't want to side with Israel. Okay? I really don't. But if you can't see the difference between Israel and Hamas, you need to have your head examined. If you think the leadership of the Palestinians is somehow no different than the leadership of Israel, you're out of your mind. If you think the Palestinian leadership is interested in peace, is interested in a two-state solution, is interested in anything but the destruction and the murder of people they disagree with, you're out of your mind. They've been that way for a long time. And it's going to continue. It's going to continue, folks. By the way, Sixer, if you want to come in, I'll go ahead and open up the stream and you can come on in. It's up to you, man. But you are out of your mind if you somehow believe, all right, that the Palestinians themselves are just like Israelis. And I don't want people talking about that both are begging for relief funds and that they're identical. All right. Depends on what you mean by relief. No problem. No problem. You don't have to come in. Figure I'd give you the offer. I'm not a huge fan of Israel. Okay, I've got my own problems with Israel, just like I have my problems with our supposed allies. All right, in NATO, we don't have good allies in NATO. We only have one. That's Britain. All right, that's a halfway decent ally in NATO, and even Britain isn't the ally we need in NATO anymore. When the entire number of the armed forces of Britain can all fit easily with room to spare in Wembley Stadium, you have a problem. Their active duty military couldn't even fill up a soccer stadium. When you have more admirals than you have active ships on the active list, to include the quote-unquote submarine force, there's a problem. But at least the British, all right, are willing to sit up there and help support America's decisions when we make things that suck. They don't fricking just backdoor us every time we make a decision when there's a tough decision to make and you're in a no-win situation, we say, and we come back and say, you know what, we're just going to either here, going to do this, and don't sit up there and kibitz about us and stab us in the back like the French and the Germans and every one of the other damn supposed European allies do to us every chance they get. And at least they're living up to their NATO commitments, something Germany hasn't done for how many decades? The United States needs to seriously consider pulling out of NATO. Let's get on to some other things. Supreme Court allows Doge to access Social Security data. The dispute concerns efforts by the Department of Government Efficiency, largely led by Elon Musk, to access sensitive data, including Social Security numbers. The Supreme Court on Friday allowed members of Trump's administration's Department of Government Efficiency to access Social Security Administration data. The conservative majority court, with its 3 liberal justices objecting, granted an emergency application filed by the Trump administration asking the justices to lift an injunction issued by a federal judge in Maryland. The unsigned order said that members of the Doge team assigned to the Social Security Administration should have access to agency records in question in order for those members to do their work. The lawsuit challenging Doge's actions was filed by progressive group Democracy Forward on behalf of two unions. Let's be perfectly frank, this judge should be removed from office because they were not issuing a ruling based on law. And this is the problem that good old Roberts has created, all right, in the Supreme Court. There's no legal basis. There was literally no legal basis for this lawsuit moving forward. There was no legal basis. These people are official government employees. They were given an official mandate by the administration. On what grounds were you making this claim that, oh, they can't have those size of those records? We know why the Democrats were so insistent that these records not be provided. Because of what the Democrats have been doing for decades with the Social Security numbers and handing them out to illegals to give them the opportunity to vote illegally. That's the main reason. And access to American treasury. There's no illegal aliens receiving, government funds. Oh, but there are through various programs. And all of a sudden now, in order to find out who they are, well, see, they're able to apply now because they have a Social Security number that was being handed to them. And that's not the only form of abuse that's been going on. The cat is killing me. It's in its lap. As long as the cat is purring, everything is fine. So what was the legal basis that somebody assigned to the U.S. Treasury didn't have access to the Social Security numbers? What was the legal basis for you to say that they couldn't have access to that data, which they needed? The legal basis was, well, it's going to harm the Democrat process. What's the legal basis for it? If you take a look at, it's filed by the unions. Government unions that shouldn't exist at all, right? Which is the next thing that if I was President Trump, I would be pushing Congress to eliminate. That in the federal government, you can't be a federal member, all right? And that the United States will no longer collectively bargain, all right, with any group, all right, that become official U.S. workers. If you're a federal employee, you should not have access to the U.S. Treasury the way they do through unions. That's the reality. And you don't need to sit up there and say you can't have access to a union. You just have to say that no union, all right, has a right to collectively bargain, all right, with the United States government. You can be whatever union you want. You can put your dues in there. You can talk about what your issues are, but you will not discuss any kind of collective bargaining agreement, and any strike initiated by the union is a grounds for immediate dismissal. That's what they need to do. Japan. U.S. yet to find a common ground on tariffs but want a quick deal. Japan and the United States have yet to find common ground on tariff issues, Tokyo's top negotiator said on Friday, indicating that there remain many differences between the sides, but they still aim to clinch a win-win deal by mid-June after holding talks with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in Washington. I'm not going to butcher this guy's name, Akazawa. I'll say his last name, Akazawa. I assume I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. Told reporters that he believes further progress was made. They will continue coordinating energetically to achieve an agreement that benefits both the Japan and the United States Akazawa says. Akazawa, however, noted that no decision had been made on whether there will be another round of negotiations next week or beyond. He suggested it depends on the schedule of the U.S. cabinet members who are due to hold high-level talks with China in London on Monday. Meanwhile, the Japanese are trying to make a deal with Europe, with the EU. They're trying to sit up there and make a trade deal with the EU on a reciprocal trade deal, all right, to open up the EU's markets to more Japanese goods and vice versa. Akazawa, not Oa, Awa. Now, the thing I laugh about is everybody knows that there is no deal. The EU is not going to allow any more Japanese goods in than what they've allowed so far, and vice versa. European goods are not coming into Japan. What does Japan need? Serious question, right? What does Japan require that Europe is going to be able to deliver to them? Serious question. Japan is a country that is resource poor and population rich. And so what I mean by that is they need raw materials. They have the population to turn those raw materials into goods and manufacturing. So they need raw materials, but even when you need raw materials, what else do you need? You need a market. You need a place to sell those things. More babies for future Japanese. Same as most wealthy countries. Japan, if it needs to change how they've been doing business, okay, with the United States. The U.S. market is still more or less open to Japan. All right. Um, is it a perfect relationship? No. But Japan has their needs can have some of their needs met from a raw material standpoint by going to other nations, specifically China and Russia. But there's one big problem Japan has, and that is oil. Crude oil. They don't have a way of powering their energy reserves. Why? Because they are now death on nuclear. Because of Fukushima, there is now a horror. Oh my God! Another nuclear plant could go under. Oh my God! 3 Mile Island. Blah 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 blah. How bad is it going to get? And I'm not saying that it's great. All right, but they fear another Fukushima. And so they've tried to go, okay, well, we're going to have to get our energy another way. How are you going to get your energy? You need oil. Where are you going to get the oil from? There's only one nation, all right, that you can really get the oil from in a relatively fast and consistent manner. And that, believe it or not, is not too far away, called Russia. Even with that in place, however, they're doing more. Japan is doing more to sanction the Russians than the freaking rest of the EU is. So the second need that they have, which is markets, Japanese needs markets open. They would love to break into the EU. Good luck. Do I think that the Nippon U.S. steel deal will go through? Uh, yes, actually I do. Um, but I think that Japan will be forced to build some of their steel plants um, to within the United States. Now, that's a win in a way. All right. One of the things that's been happening within manufacturing throughout the United States that most people are ignoring is yes, manufacturing jobs are happening, but it's not the manufacturing jobs of the 1950s and the 1960s because technology, the influx of technology has changed a lot of that. Okay, and they're probably being scalped by India for oil. India's oil issue is uh, different. They also have an oil issue. I don't deny that. They're not getting their oil though from Russia. They're getting it from the Middle East. And in fact, India has been pushing for the big pipeline. All right, of oil coming from Iran all the way over through Afghanistan slash Pakistan, right down into India. They've been pushing this thing. There weren't the kind of robots in the 1950s. All right. So manufacturing will come back, and I think that that's what's going to happen. I do think that there'll be more jobs, manufacturing type jobs, and more steel made from U.S. plants here in the United States, and it'll have a Nippon. Okay, Nippon owns it, just like the Toyota company manufactures a lot of vehicles in the United States now. All right. Um, you're going to see something very similar taking place. All right, with the U.S. Nippon steel deal. That doesn't mean that there won't be a lot of raw materials still flooding into Japan for other reasons, because Japan needs steel, massive steel, because guess what they've gotten back into? Building warships. Okay, so I do think that that's going to go through. It's just not going to look the way people think it will. In a big win for the U.S. Democrats and Justice Department, Kilmar Obrego Garcia has been returned to the United States in defiance of the Cheeto Führer, all right, charged with transport and then charged with transporting people in the country illegally. Kilmar Obrero Garcia, who was mistakenly deported, all right, to El Salvador, became a political flashpoint in the Trump administration's stepped-up immigration enforcement, was returned to the United States on Friday to face criminal charges related to what the Trump administration says was a large human smuggling operation that brought immigrants into the country illegally. His abrupt release from El Salvador closes one chapter and opens another in a saga that yielded a remarkable months-long standoff between Trump officials and the courts over deportation that officials initially acknowledged was done in error, but then continued to stand behind in an apparent defiance of court orders by judges to facilitate his return to the United States. I'm tired of these people. You know what makes me laugh about this? Is that they're all up in arms right now because guess what? He got returned. Did he get released? No, he's still in jail. And he's going to stay in jail. He's going to be charged, is going to go to court. They're not going to allow him basically on bail. All right? And I wouldn't. And then he's going to be freaking convicted. He's going to spend time in a US prison and then immediately deported. I have lies fatigue. Oh, okay, we'll add to this one. Ohio food banks strain as Trump slashes federal aid programs. Really? Hmm. On a warm spring morning, volunteers at the Mid-Ohio Food Collective plucked cucumbers from a greenhouse where a state psychiatric hospital once stood and land lay fallow. Now the state's largest food bank is working that ground again. part of an urgent effort to shore up supplies amid a shrinking federal support, including deep funding cuts under President Donald Trump. They are planting more, prepping soil for fruit trees, and installing hives for honey. Really? In the greenhouse, crates of romaine and butterhead lettuce were packed for delivery, bound for a pantry across town. Back at headquarters in Grove City, staff chased leads from grocers and manufacturers, even truckers looking to unload abandoned freight. Every pallet helped, every pound counted. In a state that handed Trump three straight wins where Trump flags flap near food aid flyers pinned on bulletin boards, the cost of his austerity push is starting to show. Food banks will still have food, said the Mid Ohio CEO Matt Habash. All right, but with these cuts, you'll start to see a heck of a lot less food or pantries and agencies closing. You're going to have a lot of hungry and less healthy Americans. Really? Where is it? One of those is Eastside Community Ministry Pantry in rural Muskingum, all right, County, Ohio. Mary Dotson walked slow, cane in hand. The minute she stepped through the doors, her whole body seemed to lift. They call her Mama Mary here, as she got the kind of voice that settles you down and straightens you out in the same breath. Regulars grin as Dotson, 77, pats shoulders and swaps recipes. She has tried to do everything right, built a career, raised five children, planned for quiet years with her husband. But when he died and the kids moved away, the life they built slipped out of reach. Now her monthly Social Security check is $1,428. She budgets 70 of that for groceries and she gets 23 in food benefits as well. She started as a volunteer at Eastside. Simple math convinced her to become a customer. I figured if I'm going to take these things, I'm going to have to work here too. Okay? Congratulations. I don't have a problem with some of this stuff. I do disagree that with her saying that as if trying to make it sound as if all she has is this social security check. Because if all she has is the social security check and her husband worked until he died, where's the stuff from his retirement? Don't you love how a lot of this stuff is like left out in the middle of it? Where are the milk and eggs? People are going to have to sit up there and grow things to help provide for themselves. With all due respect, they said, okay, the lands were a quote unquote psychiatric hospital. Don't you think that maybe we should be reopening a lot of these psychiatric hospitals? In fact, I think there's whole boroughs rather in New York that you can sit up there and call, claim we're insane asylums. So she's a volunteer, good for everyone. And good for her, and I agree. Socializing can be good for everyone. I disagree with that socialization is necessary for humans. To what degree depends upon the human being. When you turn 77 and you're an old person, there are things that you should be able to do to give to the youth and everything else. Right? I don't believe that now does that mean you're going to be working the fields as heavily as you did before? The answer is obviously no. Right? It's they're just dumb. Look, to say that this food pantry is being slashed because budgets are being slashed on the federal government? No, they're not. They're being returned to what they should have been. Right? And the CEO of this group, I, the fact that they use the term CEO makes me believe he's being paid. And if you're being paid for that work, that should be volunteer work, with all due respect, dude, survivorship benefits are 50% of what the earner of Social Security. All right. I'm not saying Social Security shouldn't be exist. I'm not even saying that this woman is lying about anything. I'm saying that the story doesn't sit up there and give the full story of what's going on with her. Because if they did everything right, supposedly, she wouldn't be just existing on Social Security. That's what I'm trying to point out. If they had done everything right, now granted things happen. I'm not going to deny that either. It makes you wonder what's going on. Social Security was never supposed to be the sole means of support for people. I would really like to know what this woman who's 77 was doing in the 1960s, in the early 1970s. I wonder what kind of life she was having. Just curious. Would love to know her life story because I'll bet she squandered a whole lot of it. All right, I suspect that she squandered a whole lot of it in this doing everything right commentary. From the smoking gun, armed DoorDash dope busted over tip demand. Angered that he did not receive a cash tip the night before on a $100 order, a DoorDash driver returned to a Washington home with a loaded gun on his hip to seek gratuity, police charged. Investigators allege that Robert Delahant, 59, showed up last Thursday morning at a Vancouver residence of Kiana Korovenkov, 19, to demand the tip. Delahant was loud and mouthy, Korenkov told police. After Korenkov's father told Delahant to leave the family's property, the men got into an altercation during which Delahant allegedly reached for a holstered Ruger firearm. Antonio Volono, 55, told cops he grabbed Delahant's gun, right, and pushed the driver down onto the driveway. Volono stated that he smelled liquor on Robert's breath and he thought anything could happen, according to a sworn affidavit by a Vancouver Police Department officer. Volono, all right, cops reported, said he feared for his safety, and when Delahant reached for his gun, after driving away from the residence in his Kia Soul, Delahant called police dispatch and advised the house cheated him out of a tip, so he returned there and was pushed. So you just went armed to a house to demand a tip, then was pushed out of the way, tried to reach for your gun. The guy pulled the gun from you, and then you called the police. You called the police on yourself. You're an absolute idiot. Delahant was charged with harassment, assault, and driving under the influence. Oh my God, what an idiot. Call the police on yourself because you're a moron. Portugal's dark side. Death and drugs in Algarve, all right, inside the tourist town where locals say entitled and drunk Brits are easy prey for very dangerous dealers. Drug pushers on every corner, baton wielding cops and revelers passed out on the ground. Welcome to Albufeira, a once family-focused resort in Portugal's Algarve region, facing an exodus unless it cracks down on excessive partying. Brits have already vowed to never return after seeing a dramatic change over the last couple of years. They claim a surge in hen and stag doss, all right, has created a party mecca that has brought more violence, drugs, and loutish behavior. In response to a series of incidents, including Britons exposing their genitals in public, and local government is bringing in new laws for tourists in July. Why wait? Albufeira was a spotlight this week after the body of Scotsman Greg Monks, 38, was found in a ravine some 8 days after he vanished from a strip during a pal's stag do. He's another victim of the strip, one local hotel worker told Online Mail this week. It encourages heavy drinking and drugs are too easily available. It's easy to lose control. The strip starts here, huh? Brits come on stag doos and buy drugs straight away and have no idea what they are cut with. Some are really dangerous people here. There's no suggestion that Greg had taken drugs, all right, on his night that he disappeared. The worker, who asked not to be named over fears of reprisals, said he believes he may have seen Greg walking alone shortly before 2 a.m. on the night he vanished. He was really intoxicated and was carrying a traffic sign. It amazes me that these areas get taken over like this. And this is the second naked body that was found. All right, in like a week or two in the same general area as well. If you're doing drugs in an area, if you know an area is becoming heavily infested with drugs, get the hell out of there. I'm just warning people right now. If you're getting into an area where you're getting involved and you're seeing drugs everywhere, this is what happened to Cancun. This is what happened to Acapulco. Acapulco used to be a wonderful resort spot. It used to be the place where everybody would go to see the local fair, and it was a great tourist spot. People would go there, they'd buy a couple of trinkets, right, and they come home talking about what they witnessed there, the wonderful Acapulco cliff divers, etc., etc. Sounds like Seattle. But it turns into a freaking, hellscape of partying, right? And I know this is going to sound like I'm being negative toward the British, and I'm not, because Americans, we have things called spring break where these idiots go all over and they go freaking nuts. And people eventually have to, have started cracking down in the several different areas, and it just moves to another area people find, right, where they can party and do stupid things because they're dumb freaking young people with too much money, too much affluence. Portugal is not a very wealthy country. It has very little, all right, of natural resources to deal with, all right. So it's kind of in an interesting situation. Their big export, if I remember correctly, is cork. Believe it or not, they have fields of cork trees. But when you take over an area like this and people are allowing drugs and everything in, and in a poor country like that, finding somebody that's willing to deal drugs in an area that's very lax police wise is just a recipe for a disaster. It's sad. It's sad when these things happen. Time for the Jensen story of the day. Model from California killed, castrated, cooked, and then ate her husband. The California cannibalized her allegedly abusive husband, who married her after 3 days, despite after being 33 years her senior. The woman proceeded to cook and eat parts of his body after she beat him to death. A model from California met her future husband, Bill Nelson, and 3 days later, the couple were married. But according to, I'm not going to try to pronounce your first name, Nelson, a a model and a nanny who had moved from Egypt to the United States, their marriage was far from a happy one. She claimed her husband showed his violent side almost as soon as they were married and says he would regularly physically and sexually abuse her. Nelson claiming she had been pushed into a state of tra- traumatic, traumatic distress, trauma, traumatic, right? Because of her husband's actions, carried out the most gruesome murder. She castrated Bill, bludgeoned him to death with a clothes iron, put his hands in a deep fryer, and ate his fingers, saying, "I'm glad I lived." 5 years before the horrifying events would end Bill's life and see Nelson locked up for killing him, the model had moved from her home country of Egypt to California and began work as a nanny and a model. In 1991, she met Bill Nelson while playing while at bar at a bar playing pool. At 56, all right, Bill was 33 years her senior and worked as a pilot. Days after their wedding, Nelson said the abuse started. This claim was substantiated by a psychological evaluation later revealed that Nelson was suffering from post traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. On Thanksgiving Day in 1991, Bill allegedly sexually assaulted his wife, and she decided to fight back. She claimed her husband had sexually assaulted her while she was tied to a bed during a bondage play. Yeah, I don't think we're going to continue with the storyline anymore because, this woman is obviously, they were into some stuff, and guess what? It got out of control, and she beat her husband to death with an iron. Women are very capable of using implements, household implements, as tools of destruction. Irons are well known as these type of implements, as well as frying pans. And I'm not saying that the problem that you have with all this kind of thing is this is a he said she said situation, and a psychological evaluation report, all right, proves nothing. All right, the fact that she was engaging in bondage play means she was already disturbed anyway, which she admitted it was bondage play. Oh, then he sexually assaulted me when I was tied up. Frying pans, rolling pins, if you're think it's worse. Saws and other tools. Yeah, to say that women are helpless, they might be helpless to a fist, right? If it's you know, there's no implements around, okay, and even with implements, quite frankly, there's a power discrepancy ratio, all right. But to think that women won't do things like wait till you turn your back and freaking hit you in the head with a freaking rolling pin or frying pan or iron. coffee pot. Okay. There was a story from a guy that when I was in my military days, okay, military war story from Nomad. Uh, this guy was in the unit, and he came in, and he wouldn't talk about why he was black and blue. And it took an investigation to find out that the guy had married a local national. Right? In this case, it was in Germany. And he'd gotten drunk, slapped his wife around, went, went to bed. His wife sewed him into the bed sheets, waited for him to wake up from his drunken stupor, and while he was unable to get out of the bed sheets because she had sewed him into it so he couldn't move, she beat him with a tire iron. Now, to me, this is a serious indication that you have quote unquote marital problems that are beyond the pale and you probably should be getting a divorce. Right? That's just me. But they actually stayed together and he never beat his wife again. At least not that I know of. War stories from Nomad. Now, how true was it? I didn't witness any of this. I'm just telling you what we heard. Oh, what's wrong with your husband? Oh, he's just tired. Just putting it out there. From Zeit Online, or the Times Online, German paper. Is it time to ban the AFD? Why Friedrich Merz can't avoid the trickiest German question of them all. As AFD grows in popularity, it gets potentially more dangerous, but also harder to ban. It could become a test for democracy and cripple his leadership from the outset. Friedrich Merz, all right, had hoped to become a foreign policy chancellor. He dreamed of spending his time playing a major role on the global stage rather than getting stuck in details of domestic politics. But now it is clear Merz and his government are facing what could be the most difficult domestic situation since the founding of the Republic. The one issue looms that may turn out to define his entire term and could fundamentally reshape the character of German democracy will he ban AFD? For the latest news and views from every corner of the World Crunch Today is the only true international newsletter. Sign up here. Don't you love how they put an ad in the middle of a freaking storyline? Germany's domestic intelligence service is now fully convinced that the AFD is a right-wing extremist party. Merz himself has no illusions about the nature of this movement, something he has made clear both publicly and in private. Yes, the leader of the center-right CDU is well aware of what has happened to his counterparts across Europe. He knows that the far right governs in Italy, Austria, Hungary, and the Netherlands once it gains power. Still, the report released last Friday by the Federal Office for Protection of Constitution, right, presents Merz with a serious dilemma. Since 1949, the Federal Constitutional Court has banned two fringe parties. All right. But two attempts to outlaw the National Democratic Party NDP or NPD, despite its marginal influence, failed. Never before has there been an effort to ban the largest opposition party, one with 152 seats in the Bundestag and hundreds more in state and local legislatures. Merz, as chancellor, if he were to take this step and bring the case closer before the Federal Constitutional Court, it would become his most consequential political act. It would echo far beyond his time in office and across the national borders, regardless of how judges ultimately rule. Okay, the AFD, okay, and the CDU are not Republicans. They're not conservatives. Okay? I want people to understand this. They scream that these people are far right. And I ask this again. What defines far right? I ask this all the time because all these people use the term, all right, as a derogatory term, and they go, well, they're Nazis. Is he a Nazi? Is the AFD a Nazi party? Is it? Is it a National Socialist Party? I don't know. I don't. I'm not saying that these are good people. I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm saying that you need to sit up there and have freedom of speech. And if you have a commitment to freedom of speech, okay, then you better start learning, okay, and educating your populace correctly because the CDU is not conservative in any stretch of the imagination. They're not slightly left. They are fully left. They're just not socialists. Now, the AFD has a lot of nationalist, for lack of a better term, commentary. But its big push, what it's been pushing on and what has been causing it to swell in the ranks is dun, 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 immigration. Why? Why? Because guess what? You have a problem of integration. Islamists are taking over huge sections in Germany. They don't respect German culture, and they demand that their culture be respected and have priorities of things. And the previous administration under Angela Merkel, all right, was more than willing to kowtow to whatever they needed. And what was the result? First of all, what other massive ethnic group is there in Germany? It's only the Islamists. Oh, there's some African Americans and some Africans and a few others, but they're from a population standpoint, they're very minor. As far as a significant minority population, it's one group. One group. And what was the result? Massive crime, social destabilization, third and fourth generation here wave around their real country flags. Yes, they do. They're not integrated. They have no intention of integrating. They don't want to become German, just like the ones here don't want to become American. They don't really want to become American. They want to take over these areas and then dictate how these people should live their lives. And guess what? The AFD is against that. And what's the result? Oh, they're a nationalist party, so nationalism is bad. Nationalism bad. Nationalism is bad. This bleeding on about nationalism being bad, it's just hilarious to me because of how the left approaches it. And I disagree with you, Mr. Barkley, to a small degree. All right, and that assimilation is only possible with a mix of European, uh, Western Europeans. You can do it without that, but you have to be. It has to be limited. I don't think we had a problem of integration with quote unquote Latino communities in this country until the 1960s and the 1970s, when you opened up immigration borders to the degree that they did. We did not have an assimilation problem with Latin Americans within this country. After the 1970s, we did. Even in Dearborn, I don't see Middle East flags or Mexican flags. You do see them here and there. Um, you do see Palestinian flags in Dearborn from time to time. To be honest, this unlimited immigration in our country has created all sorts of things. We've had immigration more or less under control. Now I know a lot of people are bitching and whining about that, but immigration overall was under control for assimilation, right? When we were doing certain things correctly. When they opened the borders and it was an open border, then integration began to not only began to stop, it actually went backwards, and that's when it been a problem. The idea that quote unquote diversity is our strength is a misnomer, and the reason for that is that when you talk about diversity today, you're not talking about common goals. They don't have common goals, and that's part of the problem. Oh, good lord! Pool float pervert pleads to felony charges. A man who admittedly sexually gratifying himself with pool floats has pleaded guilty to a months-long burglary spree that netted him dozens of inflatable partners. Oh my god, this guy is stealing pool floats. In a deal with Florida prosecutors, Christopher Monin, all right, 41, copped to the theft and burglary charges on the eve of his scheduled June 2nd criminal trial in Brevard County. While such felony convictions carry stiff maximum prison terms, Monin's plea deal resulted in a downward departure, in part because he requires specialized treatment for a mental disorder that is unrelated to substance abuse or addiction, according to a court filing which noted the defendant was amenable to treatment. Oh my god. All right. Uh, Degenerates on parade. That's more than anything else. These people talk about Florida and Florida's run by MAGA. If Florida was truly run by MAGA, these people would be gone. I'm just pointing it out. How many people saw this story? FBI Director Kash Patel announces COVID breakthrough after seizing Dr. Anthony Fauci's phones and hard drives. The Trump administration has recovered a cell phone and hard drives used by Anthony Fauci during the COVID pandemic, the president's FBI chief has revealed. Speaking Thursday on the Joe Rogan Experience, FBI Director Kash Patel described the discovery as a great breakthrough in the government's ongoing investigation into the origins of the pandemic and the federal response. Patel said investigators had long struggled to locate the devices Fauci used while serving as the chief medical advisor to the White House. Records could shed light on key decisions surrounding lockdowns, mask mandates, and ties between Fauci's former agency and the Wuhan laboratory central to the lab leak theory. During the episode where Patel shared a cigar with Rogan and touched on topics ranging from COVID to UFOs, he revealed that the FBI had recovered the phone and hard drive just days before the interview was recorded. Patel did not clarify when the phone was in use, how investigators verified the connection to Fauci, or how the devices were obtained, nor did he disclose that the FBI's multiple investigations into the pandemic's origins have uncovered so far, what they've uncovered. Right? It's unclear rather, exactly where the phone was used and how they verified it belonged to Fauci. Patel did not specify how they seized it or what the team's multiple investigations thus far on the origins of COVID have found. I think this is more to do with the fact that the Trump administration and Kash Patel and everything else are getting ready to charge Fauci. All right. And they have a lot that they can charge him for. They really do. All right. Last three stories of the day, folks. Last three. Escaped bull causes chaos on city streets. Drivers and pedestrians in Birmingham, England were left stunned Friday morning as an escaped bull caused chaos on the city streets. Somebody's trying to recreate the reign of the bulls in Paloma. John Cooper said he was working at Small Heath railway station in the eastern part of the city Friday morning when something caught his eye. I saw something go past in the corner of my eye and I thought it was a horse. All right. I had to go for another look and thought, oh God, it's a bull. Cooper captured a video of the bull trotting through the roads and stopping traffic. The bull didn't seem dangerous, just lost. The Midlands police confirmed officers were dispatched to the scene. We were aware of the bull on a road near New Bond Street in Birmingham just around 9:30 a.m. today. We are liaising. I'm sorry, I butchered that word. All right, with Birmingham City Council and other agencies to ensure that the animal is taken to a safe location. Police later confirmed the bull was no longer on the loose, but no details of the capture were released. Oh my gosh. So the bull was running around a major city in Birmingham, Britain. Could be worse. Could be like this. Wild elephant wanders into store in search of treats. And we're going to watch this one here.
On Monday,
we're going to kill all the audio for it. Hungry elephant caught on CCTV visiting the store. Where does the elephant want to go? Wherever the hell it wants. What's it going to eat? Whatever the hell it wants. It just walked right in. Yeah. 10 bags of sweets, around $1 each, as well as bananas and peanuts. All right. Well, you know, now this was, by the way, this was in Thailand, and the elephant is a 27-year-old elephant that they've given a name to called Pai Biang Lek, right? And it's well known, all right, and it makes frequent treks out of the Khao Yai National Park in search of snacks. So people are basically feeding the animal. Local members of the Khao Yai Elephant Lovers Groups donated money, all right, to the store to pay for Bai Lang Lek's snacks. The store owner said that he's not angry at the elephant, as the animal must have been hungry. The fact that it just kind of saunters in, grabs a few snacks, just leaves. Oh my god. Final story of the day. Wisconsin Zoo. Escaped otter made the decision to be wild. A Wisconsin zoo announced it has called off the search for an otter on the loose since March, explaining the animal made the decision to be a wild otter. The new zoo and adventure park in Green Bay previously revealed two otters, Louie and Ophelia, escaped from their enclosure during a snowstorm on March 20th. Ophelia was recaptured and returned to the zoo on April 2nd, but Louie has proved to be more elusive. At no point during his time away has Louis been spotted, and reported to us repeatedly in the same yard or waterway, which was which is what would have been required to set traps to bring him home, the zoo said in a social media. We did, however, receive enough reports of sightings in similar areas that leads us to believe that he is healthy and surviving well. The zoo said Louis was born in the wild and is believed to have all the skills and instincts he would need to survive on his own. We expect that he's doing fine out there. The zoo said it was working with the North American river otter species survival plan to find a new mate for Ophelia. Well, what about a new mate for poor Louis? Just find a mate and release him out there for him. Oh my God. The poor guy. He's out on his own. They captured his wife, and he's like, well, I guess she's gone. She couldn't make it on her own. Wanted to find a house. Louis can't be tied down. He's a free man. Truthfully, though, nothing against the zoo or anything else, but you just put an endangered species and a non-indigenous species into the local wildlife, and you're like, oh, that's not going to create a problem. He went out for a pack of Camels and got lost. I'm just pointing out that the people's attitudes towards these things, if it's not native to that area and roaming around wild, meaning it can survive in there, then that makes it an invasive species. And Louis, you don't want to be termed an invasive species. Bad things happen to invasive species. Just ask the lionfish that are being hunted as much as possible, right, on the coast of Florida right now. They would love to re-extinct them in Florida. They're not succeeding, but people are trying because those things are dangerous. Right? I don't have a problem with it. All right. Personally, I think otters are cool. But otters are they look cute, they look friendly. Otters are members of the weasel family, folks. Just to let you know. they're very closely related to weasels. So I wouldn't, they can be voracious, all right, and they can destroy local ecologies. They literally can. All right. So I don't know how long people are going to tolerate Louis being on the loose, especially if he hits certain areas. There was a group of these leftist loons in Georgia that they wanted to beautify this little working complex area, like with offices and stuff. This complex by putting a small little pond slash lake, and they stocked it, okay, with fish. They put turtles in it. All right. They eventually got ducks that were swimming around, and then they put in some swans before they had to remove the swans because they were terrorizing terrorizing everything. All right. And then they decided, okay, well, let's put in a couple of otters. The otters then started killing everything, including the ducks, wiping out everything in there. Now, the pond has been restocked with ducks. They have removed the otters after being devastated, so the ducks have returned. Okay, uh, the turtles still are in there. They're trying to restock it once again with koi fish so that people can sit up there and feed the fish. Right. But I find it hilarious when these guys sit up there and go, "Oh, an otter would be." And they were cool looking. I will admit this; they were cool looking. But then you find out why are there fewer and fewer ducks every day. because the two otters were wiping them out. It's this is how things are, folks. This is human. This is nature. All right, everybody. That's all I got for the day. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate you all coming out and listening to my wonderful little stories today. Hope you all have a good day, and I will talk to you all later. Bye bye, everybody.